My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and today I want to share a true story about my life, a story filled with pain, rejection, and finally, unbelievable luck. It's a story about family, about dreams, and about how life can surprise you when you least expect it. Growing up, I always thought my family loved me. I was the youngest of 3 children, and although we didn't have much money, I believed we had each other's backs. But everything changed when my father passed away suddenly when I was 16. My father was our family's rock. He worked hard at 2 different jobs just to keep food on our table. My mother didn't have a job. She always said her job was taking care of the home. Without Dad, we quickly began to struggle. I remember the first time I realised how poor we had become. It was a cold winter morning and I needed new shoes. Mine had holes and snow was soaking my feet. I asked my mum if she could buy me a new pair, but instead she broke down crying. That day, I understood what it truly meant to be poor. After Dad's death, my older siblings, Kevin and Emily, started drifting away from our family. They both found jobs in the city and gradually spent less and less time at home. Soon enough, it was just me and Mum, struggling every day to keep going. By the time I finished high school, our financial situation had become worse. College wasn't even a possibility for me. I began working at a grocery store, stacking shelves at night, and at a cafe during the day. I wanted to support my mother. She had grown weaker, tired from all the stress and grief. Despite all the hardships, I stayed optimistic. I believed things would get better. But one day, something happened that shattered my heart into pieces. It was a warm Sunday afternoon. My mum received a call from Kevin, my older brother. He said he wanted to visit and talk about something important. We were both surprised, but happy. It had been months since Kevin had visited us. When Kevin arrived, he was not alone. Emily, my older sister, was with him. My mum welcomed them with hugs and tears. She missed them so much. But I immediately felt that something was wrong. My brother and sister had serious looks on their faces, and they refused to make eye contact with me. After a few minutes, Kevin cleared his throat and said, "Mum, Sarah, we need to talk. Emily and I have been thinking. It's about our future. We think it's better for everyone if we sell this house." My mum's eyes widened in shock. "Sell the house? But this is our home. Your father worked his entire life to give us this." Emily quickly jumped in. "Mum, we understand it's painful, but you can't keep living like this. Sarah barely earns enough and you don't have any income. If we sell this house, you can move to a smaller place. Kevin and I can finally have some money to start our own families properly." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My siblings wanted to sell our family home, our last remaining memory of Dad, for money. And worse, they were blaming our poverty on me and my mum. "How can you even think of selling our home?" I cried. "Dad would never want this. He built this house for us." Kevin glared at me. "Sarah, stop being childish. You're the reason Mum is stuck in this situation. If you had a proper job, or at least tried harder, none of this would have happened." Those words felt like a knife through my heart. My own brother was blaming me for our poverty. My mother started crying, begging Kevin and Emily to reconsider, but they refused. Kevin took a deep breath and delivered his final blow. "Look, Mum, it's your choice. Either sell the house willingly, or we will take legal action. We're tired of living in poverty because of you and Sarah." My mother sank into the couch, completely devastated. She had lost her husband, struggled through years of poverty, and now her own children were abandoning her. I couldn't bear seeing her in such pain. Gathering all my strength, I said firmly, "Fine, you want the house? Take it, but don't ever call me your sister again. From this day on, I don't know either of you." Kevin and Emily didn't say another word. They simply stood up and left. leaving behind a silence filled only with my mum's quiet sobs. I held her tightly, promising we'd find a way. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I promised myself that I would never let anyone hurt us like this again. I would change our life. I didn't know how, but somehow I would. Life moved forward painfully slow after that day. My mother's health began to worsen due to stress. Medical bills piled up, and I took another job, now working 3 shifts every day, barely sleeping. I was exhausted, depressed, and yet determined. Months passed by. One rainy evening, while walking home from work, tired and drenched in rain, I stopped by a gas station to buy some water. At the counter, my eyes caught the bright colours of the lottery tickets hanging behind the cashier. Normally, I never bought them. But that day, something inside me whispered, "Why not?" I handed over $2, picked a random ticket, and shoved it into my pocket. I forgot about it immediately. Life continued with its usual harsh routine: work, home, worry, and repeat. 3 days later, I was at work when my co-worker Mary mentioned the lottery results had been announced and someone in our town had won. "Can you imagine?" Mary laughed. "Someone from this town actually won millions." I smiled weakly, not really interested. But later that evening, when I got home, something told me to check my ticket. I pulled it from my pocket, unfolded the crumpled paper, and matched the numbers slowly. I couldn't believe my eyes. The numbers matched exactly. My heart started beating faster. I checked once, twice, 10 times. It was true. I had won the lottery. The ticket I bought randomly in desperation and exhaustion was now worth millions. At first, I was speechless. Then I started crying uncontrollably. It wasn't just happiness, it was relief, shock, and overwhelming joy. Finally, after years of pain, poverty, and humiliation, my life was about to change completely. The girl my siblings disowned for being poor was now holding a fortune, and they had no idea what was coming next. The night I discovered I had won the lottery was a night unlike any other. I sat alone in my small room, staring at the ticket with tears in my eyes. All the pain, struggle, and sleepless nights seemed to melt away with the realization that finally, my life was about to change. But first, I needed to confirm this wasn't just a dream. My hand shaking, I dialed the lottery company's number, written on the back of the ticket. It felt like hours before someone picked up. But finally, a friendly voice said, "Congratulations! You've just become a millionaire!" I hung up the phone in shock, still unable to process everything. My mind raced with possibilities. What would I do first? Who would I tell? How could I handle this sudden wealth after years of poverty? My thoughts instantly turned to my mother. For the past few years, her health had gotten worse. Stress, grief, and worry had made her weak. But now, finally, I had the means to give her the life she deserved. Early the next morning, I went straight to the lottery office. I kept looking around nervously, afraid someone would recognize me or somehow take this away. But everything went smoothly, and within a few hours, my account balance had more zeros than I had ever imagined. It was overwhelming, but my joy wasn't in having money. It was in what it could do for my mother and our future. The first thing I did was find a beautiful house in a peaceful neighborhood. I wanted a home where my mother could rest, recover, and live comfortably. When I brought her to the new house, she couldn't believe it. She stood quietly, tears running down her cheeks, her hands trembling. "Sarah," she whispered, How is this possible?" "I won, Mom. We finally have enough to be safe," I said gently, hugging her tightly. She broke down completely then, sobbing into my shoulder, letting out all the years of built-up pain and stress. It felt as though a heavy burden had finally lifted from both of our shoulders. Within days, our lives had changed dramatically. Mum was smiling more, and her health started to improve rapidly. I made sure she received the best medical treatment and hired professional caregivers to help her recover faster. But deep inside, I knew my journey was far from over. My mind frequently drifted back to the painful memory of Kevin and Emily disowning us. I wondered if they knew about my fortune yet. And if they did, how would they react? It didn't take long to find out. About 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but my instincts told me something interesting awaited on the other side. I picked up the phone and heard a familiar voice. "Sarah, it's Kevin." My heart tightened, but I managed to stay calm. "Kevin, what do you want?" There was an awkward pause before he said, I heard you won the lottery." "Yes, I did," I replied, my voice firm. "But why does it matter to you?" He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened between us. I didn't mean those things. We're family." His words made my stomach turn. "Family?" I asked sharply. "Where was that word when you and Emily kicked us out of our own home?" Kevin stammered, clearly struggling to find an excuse. "We made a mistake, Sarah. We want to make things right." I paused, allowing the silence to stretch, and finally said, "I don't think so, Kevin. You made your choice. Live with it." I ended the call, my heart racing. It felt good to stand up to him, but I knew this wouldn't be the last I heard from him. The very next day, Emily appeared at our doorstep. She looked thinner, her face tired. I hadn't seen her since the day she helped kick us out. "Sarah," she pleaded softly, tears filling her eyes. "Please, hear me out." I sighed deeply, but let her inside. My mother stayed silent, watching quietly from the couch, her face unreadable. Emily started crying immediately. "Sarah, I was wrong. Kevin manipulated me, and I was desperate. I'm sorry." "Desperate?" I snapped. "You were desperate, Emily. What about Mum? What about me? Do you know how we felt?" Emily cried even harder. "I know, I regret it every single day. Please, Sarah, I have nowhere else to go. Kevin lost his job. We're drowning in debt." For a moment, my heart softened. She was my sister after all. But then, I remembered the pain in Mum's eyes that day, the humiliation and betrayal we felt. I shook my head slowly. "I can't forget what you did, Emily. You and Kevin broke this family. It's too late." Emily begged and pleaded, but my decision was firm. Finally, she stood up, wiping her tears. "I understand," she whispered quietly, turning to leave. At the door, she paused, looking back one last time. "I truly am sorry." As she closed the door behind her, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Forgiveness wasn't easy, especially after years of pain and abandonment. But perhaps someday, I might find it in my heart. In the weeks that followed, I focused entirely on rebuilding our lives. I enrolled in college, determined to fulfill the dreams I'd once buried because of poverty. I also started investing wisely, planning for the future. But something surprising happened. Even with all the money, there were days I still felt empty inside. I realized money couldn't completely heal the emotional wounds left behind by my siblings' betrayal. The scars ran deeper than any lottery win could fix. I decided to do something meaningful with my fortune. I opened a charity dedicated to helping families struggling with poverty. It became my mission to ensure that no one else experienced the kind of pain we had endured. As the charity grew, so did my sense of purpose. My life had transformed in ways I never imagined, but I knew deep down that one thing remained unfinished: closure with my siblings. Then one day, several months later, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from Kevin, but this time the tone was different. It was filled with regret, sincerity, and genuine remorse. He asked if we could meet just once, not for money or help, but simply for forgiveness. I felt torn. I wasn't sure if I was ready. That night, I discussed it with my mother. She listened quietly, then softly said, "Sarah, sometimes forgiveness isn't for them. It's for us, to finally let go." Her words hit me deeply. She was right. Maybe it was time to let go. I decided to meet Kevin. I chose a public cafe, neutral ground. As I walked toward the cafe, my heart pounded nervously. I hadn't seen my brother face to face since that painful day he walked out of our lives. As I entered, Kevin stood up slowly. His eyes met mine, filled with sadness and regret. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse. We sat down, silent, for a long moment. Then Kevin quietly said, "Sarah, I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. What I did was unforgivable, but I still ask you to forgive me." Looking into his eyes, I finally saw the brother I'd once loved so dearly. He was broken, humbled by life. I knew forgiveness wouldn't erase the past, but maybe it could help heal our futures. I took a deep breath and finally spoke, my voice steady yet gentle. "Kevin, I forgive you." Tears filled his eyes. At that moment, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't just money that had freed me, it was forgiveness. Forgiving Kevin brought a strange kind of peace into my life. It felt as if a huge burden had lifted off my shoulders. I didn't realize how heavy carrying resentment could be until that very moment. We parted ways quietly that day, each of us knowing that things would never fully go back to the way they once were. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something new. In the months following our meeting, my life continued to change in wonderful and unexpected ways. My mother's health improved dramatically, thanks to proper medical care and relief from financial stress. Watching her smile again, seeing the brightness return to her eyes, made every painful moment of the past worthwhile. My charity was growing fast, becoming something bigger and more meaningful than I'd ever imagined. Each day, stories poured in from families we had helped. Mothers who could finally feed their children properly. Fathers who found steady employment through our support programs. Kids who no longer had to worry about where their next meal would come from. These were the stories that filled my heart with true joy. But despite all the positive changes, there was still one shadow in my heart. Emily. Ever since I had forgiven Kevin, thoughts of my sister frequently crossed my mind. Where was she now? Was she okay? Did she truly regret what she had done? Then, one rainy afternoon, as I sat in my office reading through donation reports, my assistant knocked on the door gently. "Sarah, someone is here to see you," she said hesitantly. I looked up, surprised. "Who?" She paused, clearly unsure how I'd react. "She says she's your sister, Emily." My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting this. Not today, not now. I hesitated, wondering whether I was ready to face her again. Finally, I gathered myself and nodded slowly. "Let her in." When Emily stepped into the room, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted and frail, her once bright eyes filled with sadness and regret. The strong, confident sister who had once stood beside Kevin demanding our home was now a distant memory. Standing before me was someone completely different, someone broken. "Hello, Sarah," she said softly, her voice shaking slightly. "Emily," I responded gently. "Please, sit down." She sat quietly, avoiding eye contact. After a long moment of silence, she finally spoke. "I don't even know where to start, Sarah. After that day at your new home, my life completely fell apart." I stayed silent, giving her space to speak. Kevin and I argued constantly after you refused to forgive me. He blamed me for everything. Eventually, he forced me out of his house. I had nowhere else to go, Sarah. I stayed in shelters, even slept in my car sometimes. Every day, I regretted what we did. As she spoke, I saw genuine pain in her eyes. My anger melted away slowly, replaced by sadness and empathy. I realized that while I had built a new life, my sister had suffered terribly. I heard you forgave Kevin, she continued quietly. When I heard that, I wondered if you could ever forgive me too. Sarah, I don't deserve it, but I'm truly sorry. I just want my sister back. Her words struck me deeply. My mind flashed back to happier times, when Emily and I laughed together, shared secrets, supported each other through everything. Could we ever return to that closeness? Taking a deep breath, I finally spoke, my voice gentle but firm. Emily, forgiveness isn't easy, but holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts you. I forgave Kevin because he showed me genuine remorse. Now I see the same in you. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Sarah, I don't want anything from you. No money, no help. I just want your forgiveness. I reached out, gently holding her hand. I forgive you, Emily. At that moment, the air in the room changed. The heaviness of past resentment began to lift. Emily broke down, crying openly, releasing years of pent-up guilt and sorrow. I moved closer, hugging her tightly. It felt as if finally we were truly sisters again. In the weeks that followed, I helped Emily find a small apartment and offered her a job at my charity. At first, she hesitated, feeling unworthy of the opportunity. But soon, she embraced her new role with enthusiasm and gratitude, determined to rebuild her life and prove herself again. Kevin also started visiting more regularly, genuinely trying to repair our broken bond. Slowly but surely, my family was mending itself, though in a completely new way. We weren't the same family we once were. We were something different, something stronger. Through this journey, I learned important lessons about life, family, and forgiveness. I learned that money, while helpful, could not buy true happiness. Real joy came from love, forgiveness, and finding meaning in helping others. The story of my lottery win became widely known in our small town. Newspapers published articles about my journey from poverty to wealth and how I used the money to help others rather than living extravagantly. People praised me, but the truth was, I didn't feel special. I felt blessed and fortunate enough to understand the true value of family, forgiveness, and compassion. As the charity expanded, I travelled often, speaking at events and inspiring others to help those in need. But the happiest moments were always those spent quietly at home, watching my mother enjoy life again, seeing Emily smile genuinely, or hearing Kevin laugh heartily during our Sunday dinners. One evening, nearly a year after winning the lottery, I stood outside our house, looking up at the star-filled sky, reflecting on everything I'd been through. Poverty had once defined my life, betrayal had broken my heart, but forgiveness had set me free. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Turning around, I saw my mother smiling gently. "You know, Sarah," she said softly, "your father would be so proud of you." I hugged her tightly, tears filling my eyes. "Thank you, Mum, but I learned everything from you. You taught me strength, kindness, and resilience." She smiled warmly. "And you taught me hope. Even in our darkest days, you never gave up." As we stood there, under the quiet stars, I realized my true fortune wasn't the money I'd won. It was the love I had regained, the family that had returned, and the countless lives we had touched through compassion and kindness. Yes, life had tested me in ways I never imagined. I had been disowned for being poor, abandoned by those I loved most. Yet, here I stood, stronger, happier, and wiser. Because, in the end, the real lottery I'd won wasn't the one printed on a ticket. It was finding forgiveness and rebuilding a broken family from the pieces left behind. My name is Sarah, and this was my journey. A journey from rejection to redemption, from poverty to purpose, from pain to peace. But my story isn't over yet. In fact, it was just the beginning of a much bigger journey, one that would continue to unfold in ways I couldn't yet imagine. After finding forgiveness and reconnecting with my family, life began to feel calm, stable, and joyful. But I soon realized my journey wasn't over. It was evolving, shifting towards something deeper and more meaningful. Every day, my charity brought new opportunities. Families came to us broken and hopeless, but left stronger, empowered, and hopeful. Each life we touched became a small victory, a constant reminder that true happiness comes from lifting others up. But as much as I loved my work, there was still something missing. In quiet moments, usually late at night, I'd think about my father. He had always been my greatest inspiration. I wondered if he could see me now. What would he think of the woman I'd become? One night, as I sat quietly in my office, going through files, my assistant came in holding an envelope. "This just arrived for you," she said, placing it gently on my desk. I thanked her and looked at the envelope curiously. It was plain white, with my name carefully handwritten in elegant cursive. Opening it, I found a letter inside. The handwriting was unfamiliar, and as I began reading, my heart began to beat faster. "Dear Sarah, you don't know me, but I knew your father very well. My name is Joseph Collins, and I worked with your father for many years before he passed away. I've watched your journey closely, and I've been moved deeply by your compassion and courage. There's something important your father left behind, something he never got the chance to give you before he died. He spoke often of you, Sarah. He knew you'd make him proud, and now it's time I fulfill a promise I made to him. I'd like to meet you. If you're willing, please call me at the number below. There's something I must give you. Sincerely, Joseph Collins." My hands shook slightly as I put down the letter. My mind raced with questions. What had my father left for me? Why was this Joseph reaching out now after all these years? Curiosity got the best of me. I immediately picked up the phone and dialed Joseph's number. He answered almost immediately. "Hello?" His voice was gentle, kind. "Mr. Collins, this is Sarah," I said nervously. He chuckled warmly, putting me instantly at ease. "Sarah? I've been hoping you'd call. Your father always said you'd follow your heart." Hearing someone speak about my father so warmly brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you. Your letter surprised me. I'm very curious." Joseph spoke gently. "Then let's meet soon. There's a lot to discuss." We agreed to meet the next day. My mind buzzed all night with anticipation and questions. Why hadn't I heard of Joseph Collins before? What could my father possibly have left behind? The next afternoon, I drove to a small cafe where we agreed to meet. Joseph was already there, an elderly gentleman with warm eyes and a kind smile. As soon as we shook hands, I felt instantly comfortable around him, as if I'd known him forever. He ordered coffee and we sat down. After a moment, he began. "Sarah, your father and I were partners. We dreamed of opening a community centre to support local families. But when your dad passed, our plans fell apart." I listened carefully, deeply moved by his words. "He never mentioned that," I said softly. Joseph smiled sadly. "He kept many things from you kids because he didn't want you to feel burdened. But now I think he'd want you to know everything." Joseph reached into his bag and pulled out an old notebook, worn at the edges. He placed it gently in front of me. "This was your father's," he said quietly. Inside are all his dreams, plans, and hopes for the future he envisioned for his family and for this community. With trembling hands, I opened the notebook. My heart swelled seeing my father's familiar handwriting. The pages were filled with detailed notes about the community centre he'd envisioned, a place offering food, education, medical care, and support for struggling families. Tears blurred my vision as I read page after page. It was clear that my father's dream had mirrored exactly what I had created through my charity. Without even knowing, I had fulfilled his greatest wish. Joseph smiled knowingly, as if reading my mind. Sarah, your father saw the greatness within you even then. He believed deeply that you'd one day carry on this vision. Closing the notebook carefully, I felt an incredible sense of peace and purpose. My father had guided me all along, even when I couldn't see it. Joseph, thank you, I whispered. You've given me the greatest gift imaginable. He shook his head warmly. No, Sarah, you've given your father's dream life again. That's the real gift. We talked for hours, Joseph sharing memories of my father, his kindness, humour, and dedication. With each story, I felt closer to my father than ever before. When we finally parted ways, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. Returning home, I gathered my family, my mother, Kevin, and Emily. I shared the notebook with them, explaining everything Joseph had told me. Kevin listened thoughtfully, while Emily wiped tears from her eyes. My mother held my hand tightly, pride radiating from her face. I want to dedicate my life to expanding this dream, I said passionately. Our charity will become more than just a helping hand. It will become the community centre Dad always dreamed of. My family immediately agreed, eager to support my vision. Over the following months, we transformed our charity into something even greater. We built a beautiful, spacious community centre, named after my father. It quickly became a beacon of hope and love for countless families in need. As the grand opening approached, excitement filled our entire town. Everyone knew our story, how I had risen from poverty, how I'd won the lottery, how I'd rebuilt my broken family through forgiveness. Now, everyone was part of the new chapter we had created together. On opening day, hundreds of families attended the ceremony. Standing on stage, surrounded by my family and community, I spoke openly about my journey, about my father's dream, and about the power of forgiveness. I once believed winning the lottery was my greatest fortune, I concluded emotionally, looking out at the faces filled with hope. But now, I know my real wealth is standing here today, in family, in community, and in love. As the crowd applauded loudly, I glanced upward, tears filling my eyes. I felt deeply that my father was there, smiling proudly. I had finally completed his dream. But my story was far from over. I knew that as long as I lived, I would continue to share hope, inspire others, and remind everyone that even in the darkest moments, life could surprise you in beautiful, unexpected ways. My name is Sarah, and this was my journey, from poverty to fortune, from betrayal to forgiveness, and from loss to a love stronger than I'd ever imagined. And now, more than ever before, I understood one essential truth. Life's greatest rewards come not from what you get, but from what you give. The opening of our community centre marked a turning point, not just for my family and me, but for everyone around us. It felt incredible watching my father's dream come to life, knowing that each person we helped brought us closer to fulfilling the vision he had cherished. The centre quickly became a vital part of our town. People came every day, seeking comfort, advice, or simply someone to listen. We provided job training, financial assistance, food, and educational workshops. Each success story warmed my heart deeply, but one experience particularly moved me. It was a sunny afternoon, and I was busy preparing materials for an upcoming workshop when I noticed a woman nervously entering the centre. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty, clearly hesitant about coming in. I approached her gently, smiling warmly. "Welcome," I said softly. "I'm Sarah. How can I help?" She hesitated, looking down at her feet. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come. I just—" Her voice trailed off. I gently placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to explain. You're safe here." Tears filled her eyes as she finally looked up at me. "My name is Laura. I lost my job months ago and my children, we're barely surviving. I feel like a failure." Her words broke my heart. She reminded me so much of myself during my darkest times. Gently guiding her to sit, I began to share my own story. The pain, poverty, betrayal, and, finally, the hope I'd found. Laura listened quietly, her tears slowly turning to determination. "Do you think there's hope for me, too?" she whispered. I nodded confidently. "Absolutely, Laura. You're stronger than you know. We'll help you find your path again." Over the next few weeks, Laura visited regularly. We provided job training, helped her prepare resumes, and secured interviews. Gradually, I watched her transform. The frightened woman who had first walked into our centre blossomed into a confident, empowered individual. Then one day, Laura ran into my office excitedly, her face glowing with joy. "Sarah, I got the job! I start Monday!" Seeing the genuine happiness on her face, feeling the gratitude in her hug filled me with deep pride. It was moments like these that reminded me exactly why I did this work. Helping others reclaim their dignity and hope was more rewarding than any amount of money. But something even more amazing happened a few weeks later. Laura returned, holding a small box. "Sarah, this is something I made for you," she said shyly, handing it to me. I opened it gently, revealing a beautiful handmade bracelet. Laura had woven it herself, each bead carefully selected. "It's beautiful," I said softly, deeply touched. Laura smiled warmly. "Each bead represents someone you've helped, Sarah. You've changed so many lives. This is our small way of saying thank you." I hugged her tightly, tears filling my eyes. In that moment, I felt completely fulfilled. This bracelet symbolized everything I had dreamed of achieving: compassion, love, and lasting impact. Laura's story spread quickly through town. More and more people visited our centre, each seeking hope and finding it within our walls. The community embraced us wholeheartedly, volunteering their time, energy, and even their own resources. My siblings, Kevin and Emily, also found renewed purpose through their roles in the centre. Kevin discovered his talent for mentoring young adults, while Emily took charge of organising community events. Watching them flourish filled me with pride and joy. Our family was stronger and more connected than ever before. Yet, amidst this happiness, life brought another unexpected challenge, one that tested our family once again. One evening, as we prepared to close for the day, I received a frantic phone call from Kevin's wife, Megan. "Sarah, something's wrong with Kevin," she cried urgently. "He collapsed suddenly. We're at the hospital." My heart dropped instantly. Fear overwhelmed me as I raced to the hospital. When I arrived, Emily was already there, her eyes wide with worry. Doctors were still running tests, and the wait was agonizing. Hours later, a doctor approached us with a serious expression. "Kevin suffered a severe heart attack," he explained. "His condition is critical, but we caught it just in time." We stood frozen, shock and fear gripping us tightly. "Will he be okay?" I asked shakily. The doctor's face softened. "He's strong. He has a good chance, but recovery will take time." In the days that followed, our entire family rallied around Kevin. We took turns staying at his bedside, encouraging him, praying for him. Mum held his hand constantly, whispering words of strength. Emily managed the centre in my absence, proving her newfound strength and dedication. As I sat beside Kevin's hospital bed one night, he slowly opened his eyes, looking directly at me. His voice was weak but clear. "Sarah," he whispered, "thank you for everything. You're the heart of our family." Tears filled my eyes. "Kevin, we love you. You're going to get through this. We're here." His recovery was slow but steady. Weeks passed and eventually he was strong enough to return home. The experience had profoundly changed him, teaching him the preciousness of life, family, and love. The crisis had also changed me, deepening my appreciation for every moment, every relationship. It taught me the true meaning of resilience, standing strong together through life's greatest storms. Once Kevin fully recovered, we decided as a family to take a short vacation, something we'd never done before. We chose a quiet cabin near the mountains, surrounded by nature. It was exactly what we needed, a chance to reconnect, rest, and reflect. Sitting around a warm fire one night beneath a clear, star-filled sky, Kevin spoke quietly. "This family has been through everything. Loss, pain, betrayal, sickness. But we're still here, stronger than ever." Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. "Because we learned forgiveness, compassion, and how to truly love each other again." Mum smiled gently. "And because of Sarah's strength, courage, and kindness, you've led us back home." They all looked at me warmly, their faces filled with love and gratitude. My heart overflowed with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," I whispered. We found each other again. As we sat together quietly, the peacefulness of the moment settled deeply into our hearts. This was our true fortune. Not money nor fame, but the bonds of family we'd rebuilt through trials and forgiveness. My story began with rejection, betrayal, and poverty, but it ended in healing, compassion, and deep love. Life had tested us harshly, yet we emerged stronger, kinder, and closer. That night, beneath the stars, I realized my life's true purpose was simple: to keep sharing hope, inspiring others, and proving that no matter how dark things seem, light is always possible. My journey wasn't about winning the lottery. It was about winning back my family, our community, and discovering the incredible power of forgiveness and love. Returning from that quiet, peaceful vacation, our family felt rejuvenated and deeply connected. The trials we had overcome had created a bond stronger than we ever imagined. But deep down, I knew my work was far from complete. My mission to uplift others and spread hope had become my life's purpose, and now, more than ever, I felt determined to expand it even further. With the community centre thriving, I decided to open another branch in a nearby town, aiming to help even more families overcome poverty and despair. Kevin and Emily eagerly supported this new chapter, taking active roles in the new expansion. Kevin used his experiences to mentor and guide families facing hardships, while Emily planned community programs, ensuring every event resonated deeply with those attending. The grand opening of the second community centre was another beautiful milestone. Hundreds gathered, eager to become part of this growing movement. As I stood before them, speaking passionately about hope, resilience, and compassion, I knew I had finally found my true calling. Yet, even as I celebrated this achievement, something inside me felt restless. Despite the success and the good we were doing, I still found myself thinking about my past, specifically about the years of struggle and hardship I'd endured. I realised there was one place I hadn't revisited since winning the lottery: my old family home, the one Kevin and Emily had forced us to leave. One weekend, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to drive back to the neighbourhood where I had grown up. My heart raced as I drove down the familiar streets, memories flooding back, the good, the bad, and everything in between. When I finally arrived at our old house, my heart sank. It was in terrible condition. The yard was overgrown, windows shattered, the paint peeling from years of neglect. The sight broke my heart, seeing my childhood home, the home my father had built with so much love, reduced to such a state. As I stood there quietly, an elderly neighbour named Mrs. Simmons, whom I'd known since childhood, approached me cautiously. "Sarah, is that really you?" she asked softly, her eyes widening in surprise. "Mrs. Simmons," I hugged her gently. "It's good to see you." She shook her head sadly. "It's terrible what happened here. After your family moved out, the people who bought it never took care of it. It's been abandoned for months." I sighed deeply, sadness overwhelming me. Then, suddenly, an idea sparked in my mind. "Do you know if it's for sale?" Mrs. Simmons smiled knowingly. "Yes, dear, and I believe it's been waiting for you." Within days, I had purchased my old home back. My mother, Kevin, and Emily were shocked when I shared the news. Mum's eyes filled with tears, memories flooding her heart. "Sarah, are you sure?" Emily asked gently. "This house holds painful memories too." "I know," I replied softly. "But it also holds beautiful ones, and I believe we can reclaim it as a place of love and hope." With my family's support, we began restoring the house together. Each room held stories and memories, laughter and tears, pain and healing. We carefully restored each detail, determined to preserve the legacy my father had built. The neighbours noticed our efforts, inspired by the love and dedication we poured into restoring our home. Gradually, other houses on the street improved as well, the community itself finding new life and hope through our efforts. One sunny afternoon, as we painted the porch together, Emily suddenly stopped and looked at me thoughtfully. "Sarah, do you remember when Dad built this porch?" she asked softly. I smiled warmly. "Of course. He wanted a place where we could sit together, laugh, and enjoy life." Kevin chuckled quietly. "And that's exactly what we're doing now." At that moment, I realised something profound. By restoring our family home, we had not only reclaimed our past, but had also built a powerful bridge toward the future. Our family had overcome unimaginable hardships, but in the process, we had discovered resilience, compassion, and deep, lasting love. Our old house soon became an additional location for our charity, a special place dedicated to helping single-parent families. It felt perfect, turning a home once filled with struggle into a sanctuary of support and hope for others facing similar challenges. People flocked to our home-turned-community centre, each finding the strength and courage they needed to rebuild their lives. It brought a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that the walls of my childhood home were now sheltering those who needed it most. But life continued to surprise me in unexpected ways. One day, as I was finishing a session helping mothers prepare job applications, my assistant informed me that a special visitor awaited me. Curious, I stepped into the meeting room and found a young woman nervously holding a child. Her face seemed familiar, but I couldn't place her at first. "Sarah, do you remember me?" she asked quietly, tears forming in her eyes. "It's me, Rachel. We went to high school together." Suddenly, memories flooded back. Rachel had once been my best friend, but after my father passed and poverty overwhelmed us, she distanced herself, eventually completely ignoring me. "Rachel," I said softly, surprised. "It's been a long time." Rachel looked down, ashamed. "Sarah, I treated you terribly. When things got hard for you, I wasn't there. And now I'm in the same situation you once faced. I'm struggling, alone, desperate. I didn't know where else to turn." Her voice broke, tears streaming down her face. My heart immediately softened, compassion overpowering any lingering hurt. "Rachel," I said gently, taking her hand, "you're welcome here. The past is behind us. Let's focus on getting you back on your feet." Rachel cried openly, relief washing over her. Over the next few weeks, we supported her closely, just as we had so many others. Seeing her gradually rebuild her life, watching the sparkle return to her eyes felt incredibly rewarding. One day, she quietly asked, "Sarah, why did you help me after how I treated you?" I smiled gently, because I know exactly how it feels to be abandoned, alone, and desperate. No one deserves that. Everyone deserves a second chance. Rachel hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you for showing me kindness when I least deserved it." Her words deeply touched me, reinforcing the importance of compassion and forgiveness. Rachel's story, like so many others, reminded me of life's powerful ability to heal and redeem even the most painful experiences. Standing there, reflecting on everything we had achieved, I knew my journey was still unfolding. The lottery had changed my life, but not in the way most people imagined. It had given me the chance to heal old wounds, rebuild family bonds, and inspire a community through acts of kindness and compassion. But most importantly, it taught me that true wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in the lives we touch, the hearts we heal, and the love we share along the way. Helping Rachel reconnect with hope and rebuild her life taught me something truly important. Life often moves in circles. People who once hurt us might one day seek our help, and people we never imagined helping could change our lives forever. Each new encounter, each story, deepened my understanding of human strength and resilience. Our home-turned community centre continued to flourish, becoming a beacon of hope in our neighbourhood. Families visited daily, seeking guidance, support, or simply the comfort of knowing they weren't alone. Every conversation, every success story reminded me why I started this journey in the first place. One quiet afternoon, as I sorted through old photographs in the living room, Mum entered quietly. She gently sat beside me, smiling softly as she picked up a faded photograph of my father. "Your dad would be amazed to see all this," she said softly, running her fingers over his smiling face. "He always believed in you, Sarah." My heart warmed at her words. "Mum, sometimes I wonder what he'd think about the path we've taken. Would he be proud?" She looked deeply into my eyes, her gaze full of tenderness. "Sarah, he'd be more than proud. You've given life to all his dreams and created a future brighter than he ever imagined." Her reassurance filled me with a powerful sense of peace. It reminded me yet again why forgiveness, compassion, and family had become the cornerstones of our lives. Months turned into years, and our community centre's impact grew stronger each day. Kevin and Emily blossomed in their roles, becoming pillars of strength and inspiration within our community. My mother remained our guiding light, a constant source of wisdom and comfort. Then, one day, a surprising opportunity arrived. I received a letter inviting me to speak at a national conference about overcoming poverty and building stronger communities. Initially, I hesitated. Public speaking had always terrified me, but something inside pushed me to accept. With the support of my family, I prepared carefully, determined to share our story truthfully and powerfully. The day finally arrived, and I stood nervously before a large audience. Taking a deep breath, I began speaking. I shared everything openly: the pain of poverty, my siblings disowning me, winning the lottery, and the emotional journey toward forgiveness. I spoke about the lessons I'd learned: resilience, compassion, and the incredible strength found in forgiveness. When I finished speaking, the room filled with applause. But what touched me most were the people who approached afterward, each sharing personal stories of struggle and redemption. One elderly man approached quietly, his eyes misty. "Young lady," he said softly, "your story touched my heart deeply. I've been angry at my family for years, but hearing you today, I finally understand the power of forgiveness." I hugged him warmly, deeply moved. Moments like these reinforced my purpose, reminding me that our stories, shared openly and honestly, could inspire real change. Returning home from the conference, my perspective felt clearer and more focused. I realized our mission could reach beyond our community. We had the chance to inspire many others across the country. With that goal in mind, I wrote a book sharing our full story. It wasn't easy revisiting the painful past, but writing allowed me to heal even further. When the book was finally published, it quickly gained attention nationwide. Soon, I was invited to speak in different cities, always sharing the message of hope, forgiveness, and compassion. Yet, despite growing recognition, my true joy always remained with my family and our local community. Each Sunday evening, we gathered together at our old house, now a sanctuary of laughter and love, sharing stories and experiences from our week. These simple moments became the highlights of my life. But one evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Emily made an announcement that brought unexpected excitement. "I've been offered a position running a community outreach program in another state," she said nervously. "It's similar to what we've created here. They want me to help build a centre from the ground up." The room went silent for a moment, everyone absorbing the news. Then Kevin smiled warmly. "Emily, that's incredible. You've earned this opportunity." Emily looked uncertainly at me. "Sarah, do you think I can do it? It means leaving everything familiar." I squeezed her hand gently. "Emily, not only can you do this, but you'll be amazing at it. This is your chance to spread our family's message even further." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "But I'll miss all of you terribly." My mother smiled gently, speaking softly but firmly. "We're always together, no matter the distance. Family is forever." We spent the evening planning excitedly, discussing ways Emily could replicate our community's success. Watching her prepare for this new chapter filled me with pride and hope. Our message of compassion was spreading further than we ever dreamed. Emily's departure was emotional, yet filled with excitement for her bright future. And while the house felt quieter without her, her calls home kept us closely connected. Meanwhile, Kevin and I expanded our local outreach, launching programs dedicated to helping young people overcome barriers. Together, we mentored youth, offering guidance, support, and most importantly, hope. Witnessing their transformations inspired us daily. One day, during a youth leadership event, I noticed a teenage girl sitting quietly in the corner, visibly struggling with something. Gently approaching, I introduced myself. She shyly revealed her name was Mia and explained that her family was currently homeless. "My parents lost their jobs," Mia whispered sadly. "We're living in shelters. I feel so ashamed." My heart instantly ached for her. Kneeling beside her, I shared my own story. Mia listened carefully, eyes widening as I described my own experiences with poverty, shame, and hope. "Will things ever get better?" she asked tearfully. Taking her hand, I smiled warmly. "Absolutely, Mia. You're stronger than your circumstances. We'll get through this together." Over the next several months, we supported Mia's family closely, helping them find stable housing and steady jobs. Eventually, their lives stabilized, and Mia blossomed into a confident young woman. On her graduation day, she hugged me tightly, whispering, "You changed my life, Sarah." "Thank you." Smiling through my tears, I replied softly, "No, Mia. You changed mine." Experiences like these reaffirmed everything I'd learned on my journey. Life wasn't about money or possessions. It was about the lives we touch, the hearts we help heal, and the families we bring together again. My family had begun in struggle, faced betrayal, and endured heartache. Yet now we stood stronger, bound together by compassion, resilience, and deep love. Our story had come full circle, showing the world the incredible power of forgiveness. But the greatest treasure I'd ever found wasn't lottery winnings. It was discovering how beautifully life could unfold when we chose kindness, generosity, and forgiveness. Mia's graduation marked another significant moment in my journey. It reminded me once again how our stories intertwine, how the struggles we overcome today can inspire someone else tomorrow. As I watched Mia proudly walk across the stage, I felt immense pride, knowing that our community centre had played a meaningful role in transforming her life. Life moved forward beautifully. Emily's community centre flourished, becoming a well-known example of hope and compassion in her new town. She frequently shared stories of families she'd helped, her voice glowing with enthusiasm and purpose. Her success filled me with joy, proving again that forgiveness and second chances had remarkable power. Kevin continued to be a guiding force in our original centre. After recovering from his health scare, he became even more determined to help others maintain their mental and physical health. He initiated wellness programs, ensuring our community members understood the importance of self-care. It was rewarding to watch him thrive, knowing he had found true purpose through the hardships he had endured. But life, as always, had more surprises waiting for us. One bright summer morning, I received a phone call that took me completely off guard. It was a representative from a large international humanitarian organisation. She explained they had been following our community projects closely and were deeply impressed by our successes. Now, they wanted me to join them on a global project aimed at alleviating poverty worldwide. At first, I was stunned into silence. Me, a small-town girl who had once felt abandoned, hopeless, and unwanted, now being asked to help lead an international initiative? Overwhelmed, I sought advice from my family. We gathered together at our community centre, discussing every angle carefully. My mother listened quietly, then smiled warmly. "Sarah, this opportunity found you because of your passion and dedication. If your heart tells you this is your next step, follow it." Kevin nodded firmly. "Mom's right. You've done incredible things here. Imagine how many lives you could touch globally." Their support was deeply comforting, yet my heart ached slightly at the thought of leaving the community I'd built and loved so dearly. Noticing my hesitation, Emily, who had flown back home for the family discussion, spoke softly. "Sarah, remember how you encouraged me to spread our message wider? Maybe now it's your turn." Her words resonated deeply. I knew she was right. Perhaps this opportunity was the next chapter in my life's mission, to inspire, uplift, and heal on a larger scale. After careful consideration, I accepted the offer. The news quickly spread through our community. Many shared their congratulations and excitement, though tears flowed too, knowing it meant change was coming. In preparation, I trained Kevin to lead our local centres fully. His steady confidence reassured me he was more than ready. Emily promised to support from afar, staying closely connected through regular visits and calls. Then, the day finally arrived for me to begin this new chapter. My heart filled with bittersweet emotions. The community held a farewell event, celebrating everything we'd accomplished together. Faces I'd grown to love surrounded me, each expressing gratitude, pride, and hope. Mrs. Simmons, our elderly neighbour, gently hugged me. "Sarah, watching you grow from a struggling girl into an inspiring woman has been an honour. Take your kindness to the world." Tears welled up as I hugged her back tightly. Her words reminded me once again that true success wasn't in wealth or recognition. It was in the hearts we touched, the hope we shared, and the difference we made. My journey with the global humanitarian organization was profoundly impactful. Traveling to communities worldwide, I witnessed firsthand the universality of human resilience and compassion. From crowded cities to rural villages, families facing poverty, despair, and hardship inspired me with their strength and courage. I shared my story everywhere I went. The painful rejection from my family, my journey through poverty, the lottery win, and how I learned forgiveness and compassion along the way. It amazed me how deeply this story resonated with people from all walks of life, reinforcing the idea that no matter our differences, we share common hopes, dreams, and struggles. One unforgettable experience happened in a small village. After my presentation, a young woman approached, holding a small child tightly, her eyes filled with tears. "Sarah," she said gently, her voice trembling, "your story gave me strength. My family also rejected me for being poor. I felt alone, hopeless, but you've shown me that I can overcome." I hugged her warmly, feeling deeply humbled. Moments like this reminded me of my life's true purpose, sharing hope, compassion, and courage wherever life led me. Throughout my travels, I stayed closely connected to my family back home. Kevin and Emily thrived, expanding our original projects and ensuring the community continued to flourish. Mum remained our heart, her steady love guiding us forward, offering wisdom and warmth through every challenge. Then, after several years of global outreach, I felt a deep longing to return home. Though I'd touched countless lives, the pull toward my roots, my family, and my original community centre became irresistible. When I finally arrived back, it felt like stepping into a beautiful dream. Familiar faces greeted me warmly, and the centre buzzed with joyful energy. Kevin hugged me tightly, his smile brighter than ever. Emily had returned for my homecoming, her excitement contagious. Mum embraced me warmly, whispering softly, "Welcome home, Sarah. We've missed you." That evening, our family gathered together in the very house that had once been a place of struggle, now transformed into a symbol of hope and resilience. As we sat around the familiar dinner table, sharing stories, laughter, and memories, I realised how far we'd all come. Kevin raised his glass, smiling warmly. "To Sarah, the woman who taught us all the meaning of courage, compassion, and forgiveness." Tears filled my eyes, my heart overflowing with love. Emily smiled gently, adding softly, "And to family, no matter how broken, there's always a path to healing." As we clinked our glasses, I felt immense gratitude. This was my true fortune. Not lottery winnings, but family reunited, lives transformed, and communities filled with hope. The path hadn't been easy. Betrayal, poverty, and heartbreak had challenged me deeply. Yet every step brought powerful lessons. Forgiveness heals wounds, compassion changes lives, and family, however imperfect, is life's greatest gift. Sitting at that table, surrounded by loved ones, I knew my journey had come full circle. I'd begun as a girl rejected for being poor, then unexpectedly won the lottery, only to discover true wealth wasn't money. It was love, forgiveness, and compassion. Looking around at their faces filled with warmth, joy, and love, I finally understood life's greatest truth. We are never defined by our circumstances, but rather by how we rise from them. Returning home filled my life with renewed purpose and joy. After years of travelling and working globally, settling back into my community was deeply comforting. I embraced the simple moments again, walking through familiar streets, greeting neighbours warmly, and seeing firsthand how our charity had grown stronger in my absence. Kevin and Emily's leadership had made our organisation more vibrant and impactful than ever. New programs flourished, including mentorship opportunities for youth, support groups for struggling families, and skills training that empowered people to find meaningful employment. Witnessing their dedication filled me with immense pride. One sunny afternoon, as I walked around our community centre, chatting with volunteers, I noticed an elderly man quietly watching from a corner. His face was weathered, eyes heavy with sadness. Curious, I approached him gently. "Hello, sir. I'm Sarah," I introduced myself softly. "Can I help you with anything?" He hesitated, then quietly spoke. "My name's Henry. I heard your story, the lottery, the family struggles, everything you've overcome. It inspired me deeply." I smiled warmly. "Thank you, Henry. Are you here for our programs?" He shook his head slowly. "Actually, no. I came because I wanted to apologise." Surprised, I asked gently, "Apologise? For what?" He sighed heavily, clearly struggling. "Many years ago, I knew your father. We worked together at the factory. When he died and your family struggled, I saw it all happening. I saw your family fall apart, saw you suffering, but I never reached out, never helped. I stayed silent. Oh, His voice trembled with regret, eyes filled with tears. "I carry that guilt every day. When I heard your story, how you overcame everything to help others, it hit me hard. You succeeded where I failed." His confession deeply moved me. Gently touching his arm, I said softly, "Henry, it takes courage to admit mistakes, and even greater courage to forgive yourself. Your regret shows a good heart. You're here now, and that matters." Henry's eyes widened with surprise and relief. "You forgive me, even after all these years?" I nodded warmly. "Life taught me that forgiveness frees both sides. You're welcome here anytime, Henry. Let's move forward." Henry smiled gratefully, his entire demeanour changing. In that moment, I realised the incredible power of forgiveness yet again. It wasn't only about forgiving family or friends. Sometimes we had to forgive complete strangers who had affected us unknowingly. As days passed, Henry became a regular at our centre, volunteering to mentor younger generations. Watching him transform his regret replaced by purpose filled my heart with joy. It reinforced everything I'd learned. Compassion heals even the deepest wounds. Rachel hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. "Sarah, you changed my life. Now I want to return the favour." Surprised, I asked gently, "How?" Rachel smiled warmly. "I recently came into some money, a small inheritance. I'd like to donate it entirely to your charity, to help others the way you helped me." Her generosity deeply moved me. "Rachel, that's incredibly kind. But are you sure?" She nodded firmly, sincerity shining in her eyes. "Absolutely. You taught me kindness matters most. It's my turn to spread it further." Rachel's donation helped expand our outreach significantly, proving yet again that kindness has ripple effects. Her act of generosity inspired others to donate and volunteer, creating a beautiful cycle of compassion within our community. Months turned into years, and life continued beautifully. Our charity grew into a renowned network of community centres nationwide, each inspired by our story of hope, resilience, and forgiveness. Yet, amidst success, our family faced another turning point, one both challenging and deeply emotional. One day, Mum quietly called us all together. Her voice trembled slightly as she said gently, "I have some news. Doctors recently discovered something serious during my checkup. I have an illness, and my health may deteriorate quickly." Shock and sadness swept through us instantly. Kevin and Emily hugged Mum tightly, tears streaming. My heart shattered hearing her words. but Mum smiled warmly, her strength radiating despite the news. Listen, my dears, life gave us many trials, but we've faced each together. Whatever happens, we'll face this together too. Her bravery deeply inspired us. Immediately, we prioritized her health, ensuring she received the best care. Our family became even closer, cherishing each moment deeply, knowing how precious life truly was. One quiet afternoon, Mum took my hand gently, her eyes shining with warmth. "Sarah, I want you to promise me something." "Anything, Mum," I whispered softly. "Promise you'll continue sharing our story," she said gently. "Promise you'll keep spreading compassion, hope, and forgiveness. Let our story heal others as it healed us." Tears filled my eyes, but I nodded firmly. "I promise, Mum. Our story will always inspire others." Mum smiled lovingly. "Good, because your story matters deeply, Sarah. It's proof that even broken families, shattered hearts, and lost dreams can heal beautifully through forgiveness and love." In the weeks and months that followed, Mom's health fluctuated, yet her spirit remained strong. She continued guiding us, reminding us daily that life's greatest treasure wasn't wealth. It was family, love, and compassion. Then, one peaceful evening, surrounded by all of us, Mum gently passed away. Her final moments were filled with love, warmth, and gratitude. Though heartbroken, we found comfort knowing she'd lived a beautiful, meaningful life. The days afterward were filled with sadness, yet also incredible warmth. Our community rallied around us, sharing stories of how Mum's gentle wisdom had touched their lives. Her legacy lived on clearly, evident in every life she'd touched. One night, as I sat quietly reflecting, I realized how profoundly our story had evolved. It began with pain, rejection, and poverty, but transformed into healing, forgiveness, and compassion. Mum's passing marked another powerful reminder. Life isn't measured by how long we live, but by the depth of impact we leave behind. Together, our family honoured Mum's memory by creating a new initiative within our charity, a scholarship fund for students facing poverty, helping them pursue education and brighter futures. Launching this scholarship brought immense joy. Knowing Mum's name would forever symbolise hope and opportunity deeply comforted us all. Her memory continued inspiring countless lives, proving love's strength even after loss. Life taught me repeatedly that our greatest challenges often become our greatest blessings. My family disowning me, our struggle with poverty, winning the lottery, forgiving those who hurt me, all these moments shaped me into who I'd become, guiding me toward compassion, kindness, and hope. My journey had started painfully, but the ending was deeply beautiful. Every hardship strengthened my heart, every betrayal taught me forgiveness, and every challenge inspired me to spread love widely. And as I looked toward the future, I knew one powerful truth clearly. Our darkest moments often become our greatest opportunities to forgive, to heal, and to inspire others with hope. My mother's passing marked a new chapter in our family's journey. Losing her felt as though a part of my heart had disappeared forever. Yet her legacy lived on powerfully through the work we continued, honouring her life by helping others find hope, courage, and strength. In the quiet months after she passed, I reflected often on the lessons she taught me, the strength in kindness, the power of forgiveness, and the courage required to heal broken relationships. Her gentle wisdom guided me forward, reminding me constantly of our purpose. Life continued, gently bringing new changes. Emily returned home permanently, deciding it was time to reunite fully with our family. Her return filled our hearts with joy, making our bond stronger and warmer. She brought new ideas and passion, elevating our charity's mission even further. Together, Kevin, Emily, and I continued expanding our organisation, touching lives locally and beyond. Our charity became nationally recognised, known not only for fighting poverty, but also as a powerful example of how forgiveness, compassion, and resilience could heal even the deepest wounds. One day, a well-known news channel approached us, asking to share our full story through a documentary. Initially, we hesitated, knowing it meant revisiting painful memories. But eventually, we agreed, understanding that sharing our journey openly might inspire and help countless others. The filming process was deeply emotional, revisiting the house we'd once been forced from, reliving painful moments, and discussing our struggles on camera wasn't easy. Yet, through it all, I saw clearly how far we'd come, from poverty to prosperity, from bitterness to forgiveness, from loss to love. When the documentary finally aired nationwide, the response overwhelmed us. Messages poured in from across the country, people deeply inspired by our story, touched by our honesty and vulnerability. Many shared their own struggles, explaining how our journey had given them hope and courage to heal their own broken relationships. But one particular message profoundly touched me. It came from a young woman named Lily, who wrote, "Dear Sarah, your story changed my life completely. My family abandoned me for mistakes I made years ago. I was broken, alone, and hopeless. But hearing how you forgave your siblings despite everything inspired me deeply. Yesterday, I reached out to my family after years apart. They forgave me, Sarah. Your courage helped heal my family. Thank you for showing me forgiveness is possible." Reading Lily's message brought tears to my eyes. It reminded me yet again why our journey mattered so deeply, not just for us, but for countless others searching for hope and healing. Our charity continued growing rapidly, but life soon brought another beautiful surprise, one I hadn't expected at all. At an event celebrating our scholarship recipients, I met a man named Alex, a dedicated teacher committed to helping students facing poverty. We quickly bonded over shared passions and experiences. Alex had faced poverty himself growing up and, like me, used those experiences to inspire others. Over time, Alex and I developed a deep connection, rooted in shared compassion and purpose. After a year of working together closely, Alex proposed quietly during an event at our original community centre, the same place where so many lives, including mine, had transformed. Our wedding was simple yet incredibly meaningful, held in the backyard of the house my father had built, the very house my siblings once wanted to sell. Standing beside Alex, surrounded by loved ones, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Kevin, smiling warmly, raised a toast, saying emotionally, "Sarah, watching you overcome everything life threw at you, seeing you heal our family and inspire countless lives, fills me with pride. You truly taught us all how to love deeply." Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. "Sarah, your kindness and forgiveness changed all of us. You've given everyone around you strength, courage, and hope. We love you deeply." As they spoke, I felt immense joy and humility. My journey had begun painfully. Family betrayal, heartbreaking poverty, years of loneliness. Yet standing here today, surrounded by love, kindness, and purpose, I realized life had rewarded my struggles abundantly. After marriage, Alex and I continued passionately serving others together. We expanded our programs further, especially supporting education initiatives nationwide. Working side by side with him, sharing this purpose deeply bonded us, strengthening our love and commitment daily. Several years later, Alex and I welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Grace, symbolizing how life's unexpected turns brought incredible blessings. Holding Grace for the first time, I felt profound gratitude. Her tiny presence reminded me that even amidst darkness, life always brought beautiful surprises. Watching Grace grow alongside her Uncle Kevin and Aunt Emily, surrounded by love and compassion, filled my heart with indescribable joy. Her laughter echoed through our house, turning the place once marked by pain into a home filled with warmth, happiness, and hope. Years passed gently. Grace grew into a compassionate, kind-hearted child who instinctively understood the importance of love, generosity, and forgiveness. Watching her interact with people at our community centres, offering hugs, kindness, and smiles freely, reminded me daily of life's true meaning. One quiet evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Grace asked softly, "Mum, what's the most important thing you've learned in life?" Smiling gently, I took her tiny hands in mine. "I've learned that life often brings unexpected challenges, Grace. But within every hardship is an opportunity, a chance to forgive, to love deeper, and to heal. Never forget. The greatest gift we have is kindness." She nodded thoughtfully, smiling warmly. "I'll remember, Mum, always." Looking around at my family, my beloved husband Alex, my daughter Grace, my devoted siblings Kevin and Emily, I knew deeply that my life's true fortune wasn't the lottery I'd once won. Instead, my greatest fortune was right here around this table: the love, compassion, forgiveness, and family we'd built together. My story began with pain, family abandonment, poverty, betrayal. Yet every step forward had brought me here, to a life more meaningful than I'd ever dreamed. Reflecting back, I understood clearly that winning the lottery hadn't truly changed my life. It merely provided a chance. The real change happened through forgiveness, compassion, and resilience. These were my life's true treasures. Now, years later, sharing this journey openly, I see clearly how our story continues, inspiring others to heal their wounds, forgive their past, and build brighter futures. Every life touched, every heart healed is another chapter in our ongoing journey of hope. My name is Sarah. I was disowned for being poor, abandoned by those closest to me, then won the lottery unexpectedly. But the greatest fortune of my life wasn't the money. It was learning the incredible power of forgiveness, the strength found in compassion, and the boundless joy discovered in giving. Because ultimately, true wealth isn't measured by what we accumulate, but by the lives we touch, the families we heal, and the love we give freely. My journey isn't over. It continues every day, guided always by hope, compassion, and forgiveness. Years pass like gentle seasons, quiet, steady, full of grace. Our home, once a place of pain and loss, now echoed with laughter, music, and warmth. Grace grew like a wildflower, curious, kind, and always asking questions about the world, about people, and about the stories we'd lived through. One evening, she curled up beside me on the old living room couch, the same one that had once carried my mother through nights of quiet worry. Grace placed her head on my lap and looked up at me with those soft, searching eyes. "Mum," she whispered, "do you ever feel sad about what happened before you won the lottery?" I gently brushed her hair back. "Sometimes," I answered truthfully, "but not because I'm angry anymore. I feel sad for the girl I once was, how lonely she felt, how afraid she was of the future. But I'm proud of her too. She didn't give up." Grace thought quietly. "So, would you change anything if you could?" I smiled. "No, because everything that happened, even the painful parts, led me here, to you, to this life, to helping others. If I changed even one thing, I might have missed all of this." She snuggled closer. I want to help people too, just like you and Dad. And in that moment, I saw the full circle. The legacy that had begun with my father's silent strength, passed through my pain, nurtured by forgiveness, and now lived on in the heart of my daughter. Our family didn't just rebuild itself, it became something new, something stronger. Like a mosaic of broken pieces turned into something beautiful. As Grace grew older, she began participating in the youth programs at our centre. She volunteered during school breaks, helped organise book drives, and even led small workshops for children younger than her. Watching her serve others with so much joy and purpose filled my heart with pride. Alex and I continued to grow together as partners in both love and service. Our marriage was not without its challenges. No real one is. But we always came back to the same place. We were a team with a shared purpose. His calming presence and sharp insights grounded me, especially on days when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. One spring, we were invited to speak together at an international leadership conference. It was held in Geneva and brought together changemakers from around the world. Our topic was transforming pain into purpose. As I stood beside Alex, looking out at thousands of faces, I felt the familiar nervous flutter in my chest. But when I opened my mouth to speak, the words came from deep within my soul. I used to think my life was over the day my family disowned me, I began. I had no money, no support, no voice, but what I discovered, standing in the wreckage of everything I'd lost, was that sometimes pain is the beginning of your power. The room fell into complete silence, not the empty kind, but the kind where every heart leans in. I didn't become who I am because I won the lottery, I continued. That was just a spark. What changed my life was choosing to forgive, choosing to rebuild even when it hurt, choosing to love people who hadn't loved me back. That's where true transformation begins. When I finished, the standing ovation wasn't just applause. It was an echo of stories untold, of wounds waiting to be healed, of others silently saying, "Me too." That night, as Alex and I walked through the cobbled streets of Geneva, I turned to him and said, "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life." He stopped, took my hands, and looked at me like he always did, with calm admiration. "Sarah, you didn't stumble into this life. You built it with every painful step. You earned it with every person you forgave." Back home, we continued to expand our scholarship fund. We created a travelling initiative called Seeds of Grace, where Grace, now a young teen, spoke to schools and youth groups across the country, sharing her perspective on growing up in a family of service, of redemption, and of hope. Her voice was different from mine, fresher, brighter, full of optimism unshaped by personal tragedy. But that's what made it so special. She wasn't speaking from wounds, she was speaking from the healing. And people listened. Young girls came up to her in tears, telling her how much they wished their families were like hers. Young boys told her they wanted to start helping their communities. Teachers emailed us saying her presence had changed the atmosphere in their schools. Grace wasn't trying to be anyone's hero. She was simply reflecting the light she had grown up around. One evening, Kevin and I sat under the stars, just like we used to with Mum. He was older now, wiser, his hair peppered with grey. He looked at me and said, "Sometimes I still remember that day. The day we asked Mum to sell the house. It haunts me." I reached out and held his hand. "Kevin, we've all made mistakes, but you made it right. We all did. That's what matters." He exhaled slowly. "I never thought we'd come this far." I smiled. Neither did I, but I'm glad we did it together. We sat in silence after that, not out of discomfort, but out of deep, peaceful understanding. Over the years, I received hundreds of letters. Some were from strangers who had read my book or watched the documentary. Others were from people I had once known who finally reached out to say they were sorry. I forgave each one of them, not because they asked, but because I was free when I did. One letter came from someone I never thought I'd hear from again, my father's sister, Aunt Miriam. She had cut us off years ago after my father died, believing my mother had failed the family. Her letter was long, handwritten, and full of remorse. I was wrong, Sarah. I judged when I should have embraced. I turned away when I should have leaned in. I see now what a remarkable woman you've become. If you're willing, I'd like to meet. And so I did. We'd had met at a quiet cafe. She had aged, her face lined with sorrow and time, but her eyes still held a trace of the woman I once adored as a child. When she saw me, she burst into tears. "I don't deserve your kindness," she said. "No," I said, smiling gently, "but that's the point of kindness. No one has to earn it." And just like that, another bridge rebuilt itself. Not quickly, but steadily, one conversation at a time. Now, as I sit at my desk writing this chapter of my life, I can hear Grace laughing outside with her cousins. The sun is setting over the same neighbourhood that once witnessed my deepest sorrow. But now, the light touches everything differently. Where there was once abandonment, there is now belonging. Where there was once silence, there is now song. Where there was once loss, there is now legacy. My name is Sarah. I was disowned for being poor. Then I won the lottery. But the greatest thing I ever won was my family back, my dignity back, and the strength to forgive. And if you're reading this, wondering if your pain can ever become your purpose, it can. It will. Just don't stop walking. The older I got, the more I understood something my mother once said to me in the kitchen during one of our hardest winters. You don't get to choose the storm, Sarah, but you do get to choose who you become in the middle of it. At the time, I didn't know what she meant. I was young, angry, and bitter about all the things we didn't have, about the people who had walked away, and the opportunities that never knocked. But now, as I look back across decades filled with moments both painful and beautiful, I understand completely. I didn't choose to be disowned. I didn't choose to be poor. I didn't choose to be betrayed. But I did choose to forgive. I did choose to rise again. I did choose to build a life full of meaning. And because of those choices, the storm that once tried to destroy me ended up shaping me into someone I never imagined I could become. Grace grew into a thoughtful, compassionate young woman. On the night of her high school graduation, she stood on stage and gave a speech that left the whole room in tears. She spoke about growing up in a house where the walls remembered both pain and healing, about learning that kindness isn't just a feeling, it's a responsibility, and that the greatest inheritance she'd ever received wasn't money or gifts, but a story of a woman who turned her wounds into wisdom, she said, looking at me in the crowd. A woman who showed me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength, and if I can live even half the life she has, I'll consider myself lucky. I cried the way mothers cry, silently, deeply, gratefully. After the ceremony, she came running into my arms. I held her close and whispered, "I'm proud of you, not just because you're brilliant and brave, but because you never forgot where you came from." Grace smiled. "How could I? Where I came from is who I am." That summer, Grace chose to take a gap year before university, not to travel luxuriously, but to volunteer full-time at our centres across the country. She said she wanted to connect more deeply with the people we served before stepping into the next phase of her education. I supported her decision wholeheartedly. She had inherited not just my blood, but my mission. During one of her stops in a struggling rural town, she called me late at night. "Mum," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "I met a girl today who reminded me of you." I smiled into the phone. "Oh, yeah? How so?" She's quiet, doesn't say much, but her eyes, they're heavy, like she's carrying something no one can see. I sat with her, didn't ask questions, just waited. "And?" I asked gently. And eventually, she talked. She's been through a lot. Her mom left, her dad drinks. She feels invisible. I was quiet for a moment. "And what did you say?" Grace took a deep breath. "I told her she wasn't invisible to me." Tears welled in my eyes. I could almost see the 16-year-old version of myself sitting quietly in a corner, waiting for someone, anyone, to see her. "You did the right thing," I said, my voice thick. Grace whispered, "I just wanted her to feel seen, like you made me feel, like you made the whole world feel." That's when I knew our story, my story, would outlive me. Not because of a book, not because of a documentary, but because of the way it had been planted in the heart of my daughter, and the way she would plant it in others. Later that year, our family celebrated a milestone that once felt impossible, the 20th anniversary of our community centre. We hosted an open house, inviting everyone, volunteers, donors, partners, and especially the families we'd helped over the years. The old house was decorated with photographs, the early years, the dark years, the healing years. It was a timeline of transformation, not just of buildings and programs, but of souls. During the event, a woman approached me with a young boy by her side. She looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. "Sarah," she said, tears in her eyes, "you probably don't remember me. I'm Mia's mother." My breath caught. "Mia," I repeated, almost in a whisper. "The girl who was homeless. All those years ago." She nodded, eyes full of emotion. "Yes, because of you, we got back on our feet. Mia graduated from college last month. She has a job now. She's happy. She sends her love." I knelt down and smiled at the boy beside her. "And who's this?" She laughed through her tears. "Her son, my grandson. She named him Noah." I felt my throat tighten. I reached out and gently took Noah's hand. "It's so good to meet you, Noah. You come from strong people." Before she left, Mia's mother handed me a small note. It was in Mia's handwriting. "Dear Sarah, I never got to thank you properly. You didn't just give me shelter, you gave me dignity. You gave me hope. Every good thing I've built in my life, I built on the foundation you laid. I want you to know that your kindness didn't end with me. It's growing. I teach my son about you, about what it means to choose love. Thank you for everything." I folded the note and pressed it to my heart. That night, after the celebration, I sat alone in the backyard, the stars stretching wide above me like a soft, glowing quilt. The wind carried the distant sound of music and laughter. I closed my eyes and listened to the life I had built. And in that silence, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. My mother's voice. "You're not just your story, Sarah. You're the start of 1,000 others." Tears slipped down my cheeks, because she was right. I wasn't just the girl who was disowned. I wasn't just the woman who won the lottery. I wasn't just the daughter, the sister, the mother. I was the spark, the seed, the beginning of something that would ripple far beyond what I could ever see. As I near the end of this part of my journey, I want you, yes, you reading this, to remember something. You may be in the middle of your storm. You may feel invisible, abandoned, unloved. You may feel like nothing will ever change. But if my life has taught me anything, it's this. You are not finished. You are not broken beyond repair. You are the beginning of something powerful. Don't wait for the world to choose you. Choose yourself. Choose forgiveness. Choose hope, and then give it to someone else. Because that's where healing begins, and that's where miracles are born. I never imagined how far-reaching a single decision could become. One act of forgiveness, one risk taken in faith, one moment of choosing love over bitterness. But now, decades later, I can trace every good thing in my life back to that decision. Not to stay angry, not to let pain define me, but to build something from it, something that could outlast me. Grace eventually went on to study social work and community development at a prestigious university. She was offered scholarships from all over the world, but she chose a program that emphasized real, grassroots level service, the kind of work she grew up watching every day. Before she left, she came to me one evening holding a small box. "Don't open it until I'm gone," she said with a mischievous smile. After we hugged goodbye at the airport, and I waved until I couldn't see her anymore, I returned home and opened the box. Inside was a simple leather-bound journal. The first page had her neat handwriting. "Dear Mum, this is for you to start writing again. You've spent your life giving to others. I want you to give something to yourself now. Your words matter. Don't stop sharing them with the world. Love, always. Grace." I held the journal to my chest, my throat tightening. She was right. In the busyness of running centres, raising a family, healing wounds and helping others, I'd forgotten that I too had a voice that needed room to reflect, not just serve, to create, not just build. So I began writing again. Not speeches, not grant proposals, just quiet pages in the stillness of morning, memories, reflections, prayers, and eventually I began writing stories of others I'd met, lives transformed, moments that had stuck with me like sunlight through a window, people like Mia, like Henry, like Rachel, and even those whose names I never knew, but whose eyes had told me everything. One of those stories became a second book. It was called The Ones We Almost Gave Up On, and to my surprise, it touched hearts far beyond my imagination. Letters poured in from readers around the world. A man in Brazil wrote, "I was going to leave my family. I thought they were better off without me, but your story changed my mind." A teenage girl in South Korea wrote, "I stopped self-harming because I read what you wrote about Grace and how you told her, you are not your pain. I think I believe it now." A woman in South Africa wrote, "You made me want to call my mother again. I hadn't spoken to her in 15 years. And in those letters, I heard echoes of my younger self, the one who had once believed she was invisible. She wasn't invisible anymore. She had become a light, not because her life was easy, but because she used it. One rainy afternoon, long after Grace had settled into university life, I sat with Alex in our kitchen. The windows steamed up from the tea boiling on the stove. The rain tapped gently against the glass. He looked over his cup and asked softly, "Do you ever miss the old days?" I smiled. Sometimes. Not the struggle, but the clarity. Back then, life was stripped down. Every small win felt huge. He nodded. It made us who we are. I reached for his hand across the table. "Would you change anything?" He paused, thoughtful. Then he shook his head. "Not one thing, because every crack let the light in." We sat in silence after that, watching the rain. I thought about how love had returned to my life, not loud or dramatic, but quietly, like a slow sunrise. It had come through forgiveness, through choosing to open doors instead of close them, through trusting that not everyone who left needed to stay gone forever. Kevin, now a grandfather himself, continued to mentor young men who had grown up without fathers. He often said it was his way of making peace with the mistakes of his own youth. His programs helped hundreds of boys stay out of trouble, stay in school, and believe they had worth. Emily ran a women's shelter that focused on rebuilding confidence and economic freedom. Every time I visited, I saw the sparkle in her eyes as she told survivors, "You are more than what happened to you." Our family wasn't perfect. We still argued sometimes, still stumbled, but our love had become a place we always came back to, like a lighthouse in the fog. It was built on honesty, humility, and the long, patient work of forgiveness. On the 25th anniversary of our first community centre, we decided to hold a quiet family event in the backyard. No press, no cameras, just us, the ones who had lived through it. We lit candles for those who weren't with us anymore. My mum, my dad, old volunteers and friends who had shaped our journey. And then Grace stood up holding a single white rose. "I want to thank my mum," she said, her voice strong and clear, "not just for what she built, but for what she rebuilt." She turned to me, smiling through tears. "You took broken things and made them beautiful again, Mum. You turned loss into legacy. That's not just love. That's magic." I had no words, just a heart that felt like it might burst from gratitude. That night, long after everyone had gone home, I sat alone by the fire pit. The flames danced gently, casting shadows and warmth across the old brick path. I pulled out the journal Grace had given me and began to write. Tonight, I sat beneath stars that once looked down on my brokenness, but now they look down on something whole. Not perfect, but full. I have loved and been loved. I have forgiven and been forgiven. I have fallen and risen and fallen again. And still I rise, because life never promised me ease. But it gave me a story, and I lived it with open hands. My name is Sarah. I was once disowned for being poor. Then I won the lottery. But the real victory? I never let pain close my heart. I let it open me instead. And through that opening, 1,000 lives found the courage to begin again. The seasons continued to change, quietly and without permission, just like they always do. Trees bloomed and shed, streets filled and emptied, and life, in all its softness and surprise, moved gently forward. Grace returned home for the summer, taller, wiser, her voice a little more sure. She carried with her the quiet confidence of someone who had lived through the world's noise and chosen stillness anyway. One morning, we sat on the porch, the same porch my father had built decades ago with his bare hands. Grace handed me a notebook. "What's this?" I asked. She smiled. "It's your story, the one you never wrote fully." I raised an eyebrow, half amused, half curious. She continued, "I've been collecting pieces of it for years, interviews, notes, letters, even transcripts of your speeches. I think it's time we finish it properly, together." I was speechless. For so long I had told pieces of my life. Through charity work, conversations, journal entries. But I had never written the full story. Raw, whole, and complete. From beginning to now. So we started writing, side by side, mother and daughter, storyteller and scribe. We revisited every chapter. The gas station where I bought that lottery ticket. The courtroom where Kevin threatened legal action. The couch where my mother cried in my arms. The first tiny apartment after we lost the house. The letter from Joseph Collins. The restored home that became a sanctuary. The centre that carried my father's dream. There were nights we wrote until dawn. There were afternoons we paused mid-sentence just to cry. There were moments we sat in silence, overwhelmed by what had been lived, endured, and overcome. And as the pages filled, I realised something I never had before. I wasn't just telling my story, I was witnessing it through my daughter's eyes. Grace once said to me, "Mum, I didn't grow up rich. I grew up deep." That stayed with me. We had been rich in what mattered, rich in healing, in truth, in faith, in second chances. That richness had passed down from me to her, not through gold or property, but through courage. One evening, after we'd written nearly the final chapter, Grace closed the notebook and asked softly, "Are you ready to share all of it, Mum? The real parts? Even the shame?" I looked at her and smiled, especially the shame, because that's what makes the light real. We titled the book, "The House We Almost Lost," and below it, in smaller print, a story of forgiveness, fortune, and finding home again. We expected it to be read by a few, maybe those who already followed our journey. But something else happened. Within a month of release, it became a national bestseller. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was true. The world, it turns out, was full of people trying to forgive, trying to believe again, trying to find something, anything that told them they could come back from where they had fallen. Readers wrote to say the book helped them forgive their fathers, call their estranged siblings, leave abusive relationships, start community programs, return to abandoned dreams. And all I had done was tell the truth. Raw, ugly, beautiful, honest. It was one of the proudest moments of my life. Not because I became famous, but because I became free. Grace, now a young adult with a heart bigger than any map could hold, launched a program called The Next House. The idea was simple. For every family on the verge of collapse, for every young person sleeping in cars, for every mother about to give up, there would be a next house. Not a mansion, not a miracle, just a home. A place to breathe, to begin again, to feel safe enough to hope again. And I watched in awe as my daughter took everything I had lived and made it her starting point, not her ending. On my 60th birthday, the entire family gathered in the backyard. Kevin had brought his grandchildren. Emily had flown in from her newest outreach project. Alex stood beside me like he had every year since the beginning, solid, calm, unshakable. And Grace? She had planned something special. As the sun dipped low and lanterns began to glow, she stood before us and spoke. When I was younger, I used to ask my mum why bad things happen to good people, and she never had an answer. Until one day she said, maybe they happen because good people know how to turn them into something better. My mother didn't just survive the worst days of her life, she transformed them into homes, into programs, into forgiveness, into legacy. Today, because of her story, thousands of people have a second chance, a warm meal, a place to rest, a reason to believe. She paused, her voice trembling slightly. Mum, this world is brighter because you chose not to let your past define you. You let it refine you. We are all living in the house you almost lost. Thank you for choosing to rebuild it. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the yard. Alex leaned over and whispered, "She's your echo," but louder. And he was right. Grace had become the living continuation of everything we had fought for. The seed I once planted in silence had bloomed into a forest of second chances. Later that night, as the stars blanketed the sky, I sat by the fire, listening to the sounds of family, the clinking of dishes, laughter from the porch, someone softly playing the piano inside. And I opened my journal, the same one Grace had given me all those years ago, and I wrote, I was once disowned for being poor. Then I won the lottery. Then I learned that fortune means nothing if you don't use it to bring people home. Because in the end, every story I helped rewrite, every life I touched, every bridge I rebuilt, was me finding my way home again. Not the house, not the town, but the home that lives in love, the one made of forgiveness and quiet, fierce hope. I am Sarah, and if you're reading this, I hope you remember. Even if the world walks away from you, you don't have to walk away from yourself. You can stay. You can rise. You can rebuild. And someday, someone, maybe even your own child, will build even more because of the home you refuse to let die. Time, like an old friend, kept moving forward, slowly, softly, without asking permission. By the time I turned 65, the community centres we had started had multiplied across the country. Hundreds of staff, thousands of volunteers, and millions of lives impacted. But numbers never told the full story, because what mattered most was not how many people we reached, but how many we reached deeply. There's something sacred about sitting with someone in their lowest moment, looking them in the eyes and saying, "You still matter." I had said those words to others so many times over the years, but on a quiet autumn morning, I heard them said back to me. That morning, I had woken up feeling a little off, dizzy, tired, slower than usual. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe I hadn't slept well, but Alex insisted I visit the doctor. After a series of tests and a long wait in the cold, too quiet room, the doctor returned with that look people try to hide. "Sarah," he said gently, "we found something." My heart didn't sink. It settled. He spoke the word slowly, a rare blood condition, serious, but manageable if treated early. He was calm, encouraging, but I knew what this meant. My body was changing, slowing down. The life I had once sprinted through, I now needed to walk through more carefully. When I told the family, their reactions were expected: shock, fear, tears. Grace clutched my hand. "We'll get through this together, Mum." And I believed her, because we always had. In the weeks that followed, I began treatment. It was difficult, exhausting. My hair thinned, my energy faded. I had to take breaks where I once used to run programs all day. But something else happened too. People I had helped over the years, people I hadn't seen in a decade or more, began to show up. Not with flowers, not with sympathy, but with presence. They sat by my bed, shared stories, brought meals, and simply reminded me, "You still matter." Mia came with Noah, now a teenager taller than me. Rachel brought her first published book. Even Henry's granddaughter came, telling me her career in youth psychology was inspired by the centre he had helped run. I felt like a tree, old, rooted, still standing, now sheltering those who once rested under my branches as saplings. One night during treatment, I had a dream. I was standing in front of our old house, the one we had once been forced to leave. Except now, it wasn't crumbling. It was glowing, alive. Windows full of warm yellow light, the porch filled with laughter, the air full of music and soft wind. I walked through the front door and found them all there. Mum, Dad, even people I hadn't seen in years. They weren't saying anything, just smiling, just waiting. And in the dream, I felt no fear, just peace. When I woke up, I didn't cry. I smiled, because I knew, whether I had 5 more years or 50, the story had already been written beautifully, not just by me, but through everyone who had helped me live it. Grace sat beside me one afternoon, reading through the latest letters that had come in. One was from a mother in Morocco, another from a prison inmate in Arizona, another from a teenager in a shelter in Mumbai. Each letter echoed the same thing: "Your story saved me." Grace looked up, her eyes glassy with tears. "Do you realise what you've done, Mum?" I shook my head gently. "No, because I didn't do it alone." She smiled. "Maybe not, but you chose not to become bitter. You chose to forgive. That's what made everything else possible." Then, softly she whispered, "I want to name my daughter after you one day." I laughed through my tears. "Let's not rush that." But inside, my heart bloomed. The last community centre we opened was different. It was built in a quiet village where access to help was almost non-existent. It was simple, just one building, a few rooms, a shared kitchen, and a garden in the back. But in the centre of it, on a stone wall, was an engraved quote, not by a famous leader, not from a textbook, but from a journal entry I'd written years earlier, rediscovered by Grace. "If they leave you because you're broken, let them go. If they forget you because you're poor, walk on. But if you remember who you are and choose love anyway, you will never be alone again." That quote became the motto of the house we almost lost. Foundation, a network of homes, shelters, scholarships, and safe places around the world. Places where people who had been abandoned could sit down, breathe, and begin again. I am older now, slower. My voice sometimes cracks when I speak. But the light has not left my eyes. Because I lived to see the very thing I once thought was impossible. The people who left me came back. The places that broke me became holy ground. And the girl who had nothing gave everything. Alex still brings me tea in the morning. Grace still calls every night. Kevin still tells the same 3 stories at every dinner. And Emily still makes me laugh when I feel tired. This life, this wild, beautiful, bruised and blooming life, was never the one I imagined. It was better. Because it was real, it was earned, and it was built on forgiveness. If you're still reading this, wondering if it's too late to fix what was broken, let me tell you something I learned the hard way. It's never too late. Not if you still have breath, not if your heart still wants to try, not if there's someone, anyone, you're willing to love again. My name is Sarah. I was once disowned for being poor. Then I won the lottery. But I found something far richer than money. The courage to begin again, and the grace to never stop. It's strange how the ending of something can feel so much like the beginning. I used to believe stories had clear starts and stops, that life happened in chapters, neatly bound, with titles and turning points. But real life isn't like that. It's softer, messier, more circular than linear. It returns to you, it waits, it forgives even when you don't know how to ask. And that is what this story has always been about. Not the lottery, not the betrayal, not the house we lost, but the life we chose to rebuild from the ashes. One golden afternoon, Grace and I visited the first community centre together, the one in the old neighbourhood. It had been over 30 years since it opened, yet it looked almost exactly the same. Faded bricks, sunlight bouncing off the windows, children laughing somewhere in the back garden. We stood in the hallway that used to be our family's living room. The photos on the wall had changed. New faces now smiled back at us. Families we'd never met, but who had come to know safety, healing, and second chances under this roof. Grace looked around and said softly, "It still smells like hope." I smiled. That's because hope never left. We walked through each room, one by one. The kitchen where we once made food baskets for struggling mothers. The old office where I first learned how to write grant applications. The spare room where we cried with a woman whose husband had left her with 3 kids and no job. The garden where my mother once planted flowers, saying, "If they bloom here, it means we can too." At the back of the centre, a young woman waited with her daughter. She introduced herself as Lila. She looked nervous. "I didn't think you'd really be here," she said. "I came hoping maybe I could meet you." I shook her hand warmly. "You're always welcome here, Lila. Tell me your story." She told me how she had been kicked out of her home at 17 for refusing to marry the man her father chose, how she slept in parks, borrowed clothes, and begged strangers for food, how one night, at her lowest, someone handed her a pamphlet for the house we almost lost. I read the words on the back, she said, tears filling her eyes. They said, "You are not alone. Come home." And for the first time in months, I believed I might actually survive. Lila now worked as a counsellor in the very same centre. "I help girls like me," she said, her voice trembling, "because you helped someone like you." I hugged her tightly, whispering the words my mother once told me. "You are stronger than your worst day. You are more than what hurt you." Grace stood nearby, quietly wiping her eyes. That night, back at home, I sat on the porch with Alex, older now, slower, but still the same steady hand holding mine. We watched as the lights turned on in homes down the street. Children ran by on bicycles. A teenager walked her dog. Somewhere in the distance, someone was playing a soft melody on a guitar. It was peaceful. It was enough. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't bought that ticket?" Alex asked suddenly. I looked up at the stars. "Sometimes, but I think, even if I never won the money, I still would have found a way to forgive, because I couldn't carry that pain forever." He nodded. "But with it, you created something the world needed." "No," I corrected gently. "We created something, together, as a family." Weeks later, on a quiet morning, I received a letter from the city council. They were naming a new public library after me, the Sarah Mitchell Library of Light. I smiled at the name, not because it was mine, but because it honoured everything I had believed for so long. That light doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence, from walking forward when everything behind you is broken, from choosing love in the ruins, from saying, "I forgive you" when no one else will. One final moment. At my 75th birthday celebration, surrounded by family, friends, community members, volunteers, and even strangers who had once walked through our centre doors, we stood in a wide field under strings of warm lanterns. Grace took the microphone. Her voice shook as she read something I'd once written on the back of a grocery receipt when I was 25. Maybe my story won't matter to most people. Maybe I'll always just be the girl who got lucky. But if even one person feels less alone because of my truth, then none of this was wasted. Grace looked up and smiled. "Well, Mum, you didn't just help one person, you helped thousands, and we're not done yet." As the crowd applauded, I looked around and saw generations of people I'd never met smiling at me. Children born to women we had once sheltered. Men who had gone from homeless to homeowners. Elderly women who had found love in their 60s because someone finally reminded them they were worthy. And in that moment, I felt something deeper than pride. I felt peace. Because this story, my story, had become our story, not of money, not of revenge, but of redemption, of what happens when you choose forgiveness over bitterness, when you use pain as soil for growth, when you rebuild not just your house, but the homes of everyone you can reach. So here it is, the last words of the girl who once stood alone with a lottery ticket in her hand, unsure of what to do. You are not defined by what you lose. You are revealed by what you choose to build after. Choose love, choose grace, choose to begin again. And if no one else says it, let me say it to you now. You still matter. You always did, and you always will. Thanks for watching the video.